The new Saudi Arabia, a place apparently of social reform and economic transformation. But is this latest crown prince actually masterminding real change or simply battling to protect the kingdom's public image? This is Roundtable with me, Andrew Wilson. Women allowed at sporting events and behind the wheel, a private sector to decrease the economy's reliance on oil. Saudi Arabia is tackling transition, but some say this new liberal route is simply masking deeper, more serious issues.
A simple change that could redefine a conservative society.
A royal decree has been issued in Saudi Arabia giving women the right to drive.
Saudi Arabia's U-turn is a step towards gender equality.
I'm very happy that this was issued and I look forward to driving.
But as women celebrate and the international community applauds, is the kingdom really on the road to reform? In a country where a chauffeur is often a necessity rather than a luxury, families can spend up to a third of their budget just getting around. It's hoped newfound freedom for women will drive the economy in a new direction.
We are actually happy for that decision in both terms, like in the society and also in business-wise. Business-wise, it will help to increase the sales for the cars and automotive market.
Global reliance on oil is decreasing, and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is trying to wean his country off its most important export. Handed power by his father, the king, the prince's Vision 2030 has seen a wave of changes previously unthinkable in this ultra-conservative state. Women allowed in sporting stadiums for the first time, religious police stripped of their power to arrest, active promotion of the entertainment industry, and planned Sharia-free development of the Red Sea coast. It's all aimed at diversifying the economy and opening Saudi Arabia to the world. But are these liberal changes being pursued in an illiberal way? Political rivals, critics, even clerics have reportedly been arrested in a bid to suppress dissent within the kingdom. Outside of it, Mohammed bin Salman has pursued a war in Yemen, leaving millions in that country starving and facing the worst cholera epidemic ever. Saudi Arabia's governance is reliant on a pact, a ruling family dependent on the counsel of strict Islamic clerics. The king's decree defies decades of opposition by the clerics, and as young royals push for change to suit a modern world, could this and other reforms accelerate existing tensions in the kingdom, causing it to go backwards rather than forwards?
Matt Moore reporting there. Well, joining us from Riyadh, we find Saudi affairs specialist Ahmed Al Ibrahim. And with me in the studio, Rothna Begum. She's a women's rights researcher with Human Rights Watch. And also with us, the editor-in-chief of the Middle East Eye, David Hearst. Thank you all for joining us today. First of all, David, okay, liberal changes. This is what we're hearing about. And this promised change, particularly of this permit for women nationals to drive and take to the roads in Saudi Arabia, it's got our interest in the West and internationally. So it's opened a window for us into Saudi Arabia. What are we seeing when we look through that window at the moment? What's this telling us?
Well, you've got to basically decide, is this a PR reform or is it actually a genuine wave of liberalisation? The West is very interested in Saudi Arabia because there's lots of money to be had from the sale of 5% of Aramco. So there's greed involved as well as values. But in terms of values, this has been there are lots of things that women still cannot do, even though there's the first woman governor. They cannot eat in public comfortably. They cannot dress the way they want to in public. They cannot open a bank account. They can't travel without their without that, and they can't consort with males who are not relatives.
Okay, so Rothna, then is this baby steps in the right direction, or is this simply a PR reform?
We don't know the motivations for the Saudi authorities and why they did it. We certainly know that they did this, they announced it at the embassy with a press conference, they announced it at the UN Assembly, so it was very clear that they want to take as much credit as possible for this one small baby step. But we have to acknowledge the fact that Saudi women activists have been campaigning on this for more than 2 decades. They faced harassment, intimidation, arrest, and even detention for some women, like Lujain al-Hathloul, who spent more than 70 days in detention for this. For this is a really big achievement for Saudi women activists. But we have to also note that they didn't say that women could drive the very next day. They said in June 2018. And they also said that within 30 days, they will come up with recommendations to implement the decree. And we know that previous proposals talked about only allowing women over the age of 30 or only not allowing them to drive during nighttime. So we are yet to see actually what this reform will really look like by June.
Ahmed Al Ibrahim, you'll have heard those. People are welcoming, I suppose, a development in what the West sees as the right direction, but they're concerned that this is too little, too slowly, and perhaps it's not a genuine sign of reform. What's the reaction in Riyadh and in the country?
First of all, greeting to you and to your guests and to your viewers. First of all, let's drop the word liberalization. It's not liberalization the society, is naturalizing the society or make it a normal society. Saudi Arabia has been, for the past 86 years, there is a lot of things has been going on in Saudi Arabia. There is more important issue than women driving, which is we have the highest representation of women in the Shura Council. The genuine thing about what happened in the royal decree about allowing women to drive, I would like to tell your guests that it's going to happen in June, and it takes time to build the infrastructure in order to women, or half of the society, the half better of the society, to come into the street. So we need to accommodate more traffic laws, we need to accommodate more police women, we need to accommodate more driving schools. This does not come between night and day. And to be honest with you, I mean, as much as we would like to please our people in the first time, the Saudi national, and second, the world, the world or the West, until when Saudi Arabia is going to be criticized? Now we open the royal decrees about women driving. We have a lot of reforms that we are going through, and we keep getting criticized. Is it Saudi Arabia is a soft target so people can jump on it? We are taking our pace. It took America 100 years. It took England 100 of years. I'm not saying Saudi Arabia is going to take it 100 years, but we're going at the speed of lighting, and we have people to worry about. We are not going to copy-paste any model in the West. We are Saudi Arabia. We are a sovereign country. We are a big country. We have 1.5 billion Muslim. Look at Saudi Arabia 5 times a day. There is a lot of sensitivity has to go, and it doesn't need to be follow any model in the West. I'm telling you, it's naturalizing the society. It's bringing things normal into the society. Like your guest, David, he said women cannot open a bank account. Well, Mr. David, I suggest you to phone up any bank. I can provide you the numbers and tell them, can a woman come and open an account? All this information your guests are telling you is not an accurate, information. My mom, my sister, my daughter can go and open a bank account. They can travel. In the United States, you need a permit at a certain age for your kids to travel. In Saudi Arabia, there is a law which is the guardianship, and there is to a certain age. The lady, your guest, she said that women, the government is talking about the 30 years old. In the royal decree, they made it clear that men and women are equal, and a woman can get a driver license by her own without any approval from her guardians. So all these are stated in the royal decree. Why the West keep doubting Saudi Arabia? If we are going to do all kind of stuff, if we stop the war in Yemen that everybody is blaming us from a human right point, if we are going to open up the society to better than the Western standard, we're going to still get attacked by people like your guest. I suggest that people look at the kingdom genuinely, because today Saudi Arabia, I can look at the West, I can accuse Germany, Italy and France. They are being a pure capitalist by assigning themselves next to Iran and forgetting all the bad human rights that Iran is doing to their fellow citizen just because of their getting economy. So please be fair and balanced when you criticize Saudi Arabia.
Okay, it's quite clear that all these issues are sensitive issues as far as the kingdom is concerned, how the world regards it, how it's measured in terms of its efforts to modernize. Let's start with the idea of motivation then. Do we sense that in some parts of Saudi society there is a real pushing motivation to, as Mr. Al Ibrahim puts it, to naturalize, to normalize the country?
I think certainly it's a very conservative society. There's a lot of discrimination against women, both in custom as well as in law. But we have to be frank about the fact that this isn't just a social issue. This is the Saudi authorities themselves who have been reinforcing discrimination against women. They have been the ones to issue the decree that prohibited driving in the first place. It wasn't simply an issue where the father didn't allow his daughter to drive. The authorities themselves did it. It was them who arrested the women when they tried to drive on the streets. So we have to be clear that the Saudi authorities themselves have been invested in and have been reinforcing discrimination against women. The male guardianship system that Mr. Ahmed talked about is the crux of the whole issue. Driving is only a tip of the iceberg. We know that the male guardianship system prevents women from traveling abroad without their male guardian giving permission, without not being able to marry without their male guardian's permission, and not even being able to be released from prison without their male guardian being present. And this could be their father, their brother, or even their son. So a woman who's 60 years old at this point, even though she's a surgeon, she may be very accomplished, she still needs a male guardian to provide her with this permission. And this is done as an official practice. Now, the one reform that is quite important that potentially could see the dismantling of the male guardianship system was a decree that came in April when King Salman said that all government agencies must not impose arbitrary rules on guardianship, something we had been seeing and documenting. But at the same time, he also said that they would review that all agencies must submit the rules on male guardianship to them within 3 months. Now, that 3-month limit passed in July. We have no idea what they're doing since then. We don't know if they're planning to dismantle the male guardianship system, but we know that the authorities are invested in the system as it is. Women's rights have been played as a political football for many decades now, and women have been sacrificed in order to advance other political motives in the country.
Okay, let's widen the picture then, David. You know, there's the women's rights issue, but there's all sorts of other information knocking about in what the kingdom is trying to achieve over the next 10, 20 years that is pertinent to. I mean, what sort of forces are struggling back and forth behind these kind of legislations?
Well, yes. I mean, to answer Ahmed's point, we don't invent these details here in the West. There are lots of Saudis in London, Saudis who cannot go back to Riyadh because they would be arrested if they would be. There are former members of the royal family. There are members of Mohammed bin Nayef's cabinet who are in Europe and in London. And they are not silent about the conditions of political repression that is happening in Saudi Arabia. Nor are journalists like Jamal Khashoggi, for instance, who wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post precisely detailing what happens to journalists who do not consider themselves dissident. They consider themselves loyal Saudis, but who are nevertheless receive a call from Saud al-Qahtani, who Ahmed would know very, very well. And you get one call from him, you get shut down as a journalist. You cannot even tweet. In fact, you become in fear of your life. So this is not a liberal democracy. And let's not fool ourselves.
It's expressing a desire to become one. And we're trying to work out today what its motivation is and if it's genuine motivation.
Well, I don't think it is genuine motivation. There is a lot of resistance to a very young prince's desire to become king. He's 31, 32. Most of his cohort in Saudi Arabia, i.e. from 20 to 28, about 28% of them are unemployed. Saudi Arabia is not a rich country when it comes to the average income of its citizens. And there's a lot of resistance to this young prince taking power in the way he's done. This is, he has arrested fellow members of the royal family. He's chucked out journalists. And this is, and he has destroyed or he's undermining the tribal balance that links Saudi Arabia with Qatar and the rest of the Arabian Peninsula. There's a lot of resistance going on beneath the surface. We get a lot of this in London because there are exiles coming out saying, you've got no idea what's happening in Riyadh. Ahmed is not in a position publicly to confirm this. Otherwise, he'd lose his job, in fact, lose his liberty the next day.
Well, let's put that to Ahmed then. Ahmed Al Ibrahim, there's a lot of doubt here around this table about the sincerity of the motivations behind reform in your country. And we have to acknowledge a few issues. One, of course, is the continuing war in Yemen, but also this isolation of Qatar, which people are saying is a sideshow designed to deflect attention away from what the kingdom, how the kingdom runs its affairs. I mean, what do you say to the doubts about the sincerity in Riyadh?
We're not going to listen to anybody. A privilege of women to drive, that's a woman privilege. A woman to have her own future aligned, that's going to happen. Again, we are 87 years old country and we come from a tribal society. Putting all that aside, David, you're asking me, or sorry, the people that you're asking in London and the example you give like Jamal Khashoggi or whoever that you mentioned, MBN's people and all that, you know, mysteries, those people, you're asking the wrong people. I invite you to come to Saudi Arabia on the ground and not do your searches from people who's, we call them the Snowdens of Saudi Arabia, the people whose intrusions of Saudi Arabia like Jamal Khashoggi. Those people, we don't believe in them. And for your information, I've never met or had a phone call from Mr. Saud al-Qahtani. I don't know him. I have no association with him. Okay, my name is Ahmed Al Ibrahim and I represent myself. Okay, and the second thing is, when we do something in Saudi Arabia, we do it after a study. When we announce, like none of you guys mentioned something important than women driving that the king has issued to the Ministry of Interior within 60 days, we have a mandate on sexual harassment of the whole society. What is the laws and what is the ban? The one man, one vision, Mohammed bin Salman, when he came as a crown prince, and he's starting to taking this country in a very speed way, okay, he knows he's legalizing the entity. He's taking it from a family business and he's reconstructing the whole country. This takes time. We are 3 years in the game. If you're asking us to invent things really quickly, it took so many times, so other countries. But the right way is not to criticize Saudi Arabia. The right way is to help Saudi Arabia to achieve their goals. Criticizing Saudi Arabia won't do anything. Saudi Arabia is as big as Europe. Saudi Arabia is as big as America when it comes to influence. Today, I'll tell you one thing probably you don't know. The KPI that we achieve at the Royal Court is much higher than the KPI that we are achieving at the White House. So there's a lot of things that's happening under work in Saudi Arabia. But for you to come and to criticize a genuine motive by the king to naturalize the society and to advance our society. I mean, you've never mentioned what happened in the entertainment industry. You've never mentioned all the YouTube channels and the movies and the young video dynamic that we are empowering the Saudi young. Why are you not showing the other side of Saudi Arabia? Why the negative? When we are done with the driving issue, now the guardianship. It takes time to do these things. We cannot invent it. We are a country at the size of Europe. We are 30 million Saudis. They had come from a different culture from the north to the south. For God's sake, when you travel from the eastern of Saudi Arabia to the west, it takes you 3 hours by plane. There is a lot of geographical area. How can we cover the whole Saudi Arabia? It takes time. It takes initiatives. There is a lot of people that you've heard of that they are working in Saudi Arabia with the government in order to step up these kind of things. So I don't understand these criticism when it's going to happen. And trust me, Andrew, by the time we finish from all the human rights, what they call human rights issues, okay, which is being politicized by the West, the West is going to find some other stuff to pick on Saudi Arabia because this is such an easy target to poke, to poke Saudi Arabia. But guess what? This government does not care. You know, they do what's best for their people. At the end of the day, David is not part of the Saudi society that I need to please. I need to please the 30 million Saudi over here, 70% of them youth. The Saudi nationals are happier today than any time else. They do feel they have an opportunity.
Ahmed
and we're going to go get someone
I know
in
there's a
2
delay
years
on the
or 3
line,
years.
but can we just give our guests another chance? Well, David, what's going on behind here? There's a need for economic reform. There's a problem with a public-based, oil-based economy staring Saudi Arabia in the face. So all these initiatives are compulsory in terms of the country's future survival. What stage are they at in recognizing that and acting on it?
Well, for instance, no one would be happier than me if Saudi Arabia genuinely changed as a country and liberalized. I have very grave doubts as to whether this is actually happening. I think Saudi Arabia has got big economic problems. Its economy shrank because of the oil price. It's very, very dependent, rather like Russia, on the price of oil. However, it has also problems and also opportunities as well in the sale of 5% of Aramco. There are problems of transparency. The stock market in London has tried to change its rules to accommodate that, and now we're also seeing interest from China as cornerstone investors in Aramco. So there will be big problems in privatization, practical problems about actually how you implement it. An awful lot. I mean, one of the issues, for instance, is that if you are a country that is modernizing, what you want to do is set up institutions, and you want to set up independent civil service and independent of the main ruler. What has happened in the process over the last few months, the last 6 months, is that
we heard that a bit with Russia, didn't we? We need rule of law, we need institutions, we need ways to guide us towards a future democratic heaven. But is that actually possible with different cultures? They have their own path to tread.
Well, all the files, all the most important files have been put in the hands of Ahmed bin Salman, who is a young kid.
Because of the delay, and let Ahmed speak.
I mean, there is something called Vision 2030, and that's why it takes time to reach things. I mean, we're going to get there. Aramco, taking Aramco public, it's already a dumb file in a drawer somewhere. It only needs to be picked up and announced. But there is a timing. Everything has timing. Economic has timing. Things has timing. We cannot satisfy everybody in the world. We need to satisfy our need. But at least we have a vision. We have 2030. We have a roadmap. We are going there. It just takes time.
Okay, let's talk about Vision 2030. I mean, there is a delay.
And Mr. David is not satisfied with any of these mandates, then we can talk about it.
Rothna, this Vision 2030, we hear a lot about that. It had very ambitious targets. The new Crown Prince wanted to have so many things achieved within a 25-year period. People are saying that's now not achievable because of the cultural barriers that David touched on. What are the signals you're getting? Is there a motivation to push these agendas forwards and normalize the country perhaps faster than the government itself would like?
I think there's definitely things that the Saudi prince has been doing to try to achieve the Saudi Vision 2030. But one of the things that we've documented is how the current system of discrimination against women will undermine this project if they continue to uphold it. They need to dismantle the male guardianship system. They need to dismantle sex segregation.
But
they need to allow driving and so on.
Are they not on the way to doing that?
It's very slow. This is the thing. The other big issue I'd like to clarify, because what we're hearing is that Saudi Arabia is a very new country. It takes a long time to provide social custom. I hear that. But it is not the youngest country in the world. It is the only country to have prohibited women from driving. Why did it do that? Why does it choose to do so? It is not the only country. It is the only country in the world to have done so. The other thing is, it is one thing for the state to try to combat social custom that discriminates against women. That will take time, absolutely, and we would want to help facilitate and to help the government do that. But it is another when the Saudi government themselves has laws and policies and officers and officials that reinforce that discrimination and that actually go out of the way to keep women in their homes, to keep women off the streets and so on. But if they really are serious about reform, they would dismantle those systems. The other big issue that we're not hearing too much about is what they're doing with the reformists in the country, right? So you have human rights activists, human rights defenders, women's rights activists who have been harassed, intimidated, arrested, many of them serving 10 to 15 years imprisonment.
Rothna, you're talking about the evidence today, and this is the evidence gathered from research over the last 5, 10, 20 years. But the future, David, the future, there are practicalities that Saudi Arabia appears to be waking up that its own survival depends on liberalizing its economy. A vast privatization program, foreign investment, exchanges culturally and economically with other parts of the world. There's a practicality that's hard to ignore, even if culturally there is resistance. Isn't it inevitable that these things are now set to buckle and give way to a new kind of country?
Well, I hope you're right. That's a sort of optimistic view. Unfortunately, this has all been accompanied by a wave of arrests, as our colleague said, and a wave of repression. Power has been monopolized and concentrated in the hands of a young prince, taken away from his elder cousin, who is under house arrest. Various members of his cabinet have had to flee for their lives. This is not the signs of a country that's about to liberalize. This is the signs of a young prince trying to take power, and he's being resisted. He's being resisted by the tribes, he's being resisted by academics, and he's being resisted by other members of the royal family. That doesn't strike me as a recipe for success. What needs to happen, and I would be the first to cheer it if I found any signs of it in Saudi Arabia, is genuine a genuine transparency. You release journalists, you allow some measure of internal dissent, and you stop locking people up for tweeting.
Okay, so we're boiling down to optimist and pessimist, which is progress of some sort, considering that the facts perhaps just spoke for pessimism in the past. Let's see how we develop. Boy, we have moved through the time extremely quickly. Ahmed Al Ibrahim, Rothna Begum, and David Hearst, thanks all very much indeed for joining us today. So, a new era for Saudi Arabia as it moves towards, we hope, more Western ways of doing things. Internal divisions do seem likely. International scrutiny over its foreign policy and actions in Yemen, of course, will continue regardless of any of these radical reforms. That was Roundtable. I'm Andrew Wilson. Thanks for watching.